Hey, Ross Robertson here. You guys ask me all the time, what type of fishing line do you use? And I use very few different types, to be honest, but the ones that I do are really important to have a specific reason as why I've chose them, so that's what we're going to talk about. The first is, planer board, bottom bouncers, whatever it is, any type of trolling application or drifting. 90-some% of the time, I'm going to be using something like this here, P-Line CXX Strong. So this is a copolymer. But basically, it's a monofilament type line that has a coating on it. One of the things I really like about this is the moss green color. When a lot of lines I've used in the past, the green becomes very chalky, and I don't like that because that's harder to see above the water, but it's also more easily seen under the water by the fish, and just bad deal with that chalkiness. But I've been using this on and off since high school and for different things, even when I was doing those pesky bass fishing things. Really a strong line, has a little bit of memory to it. It's not something, that I want to put on a spinning reel personally, but super, super strong using the 12-pound test, just a hair bit bigger diameter than the charts for your crankbait diving depth. So you're just going to get a hair shallower. But the thing with this is just the durability. It means I have to change my line much, much less. And that's really important, and why I made one of the switches to this is because as we start, tripping our boards, we're using the pinch pads, the releases and all that, it's really hard on any type of line that is soft. So for almost all of my presentations that I'm trolling, especially with boards, the CXX Premium by P-Line is my go-to. And then we get into a different type of, again, copolymer, but really kind of a monofilament. This is P-Line CX Premium. So again, it is a fluorocarbon coated line. So you're going to have lower visibility, which I know may sound crazy because you notice here, anything that I put in my hands, I generally want to have high vis line. I want to see where that line's going for netting, for 100 reasons, seeing bites and all that good stuff. So like this 10-pound test is what I use for ice fishing, jigging walleyes, open water, things like that. I do go up occasionally to 12-pound test in this when I'm casting, let's say at night, something like that. And then I often do use a low vis green, but I don't know that that really matters. But one thing with fishing line in general you have to do is you have to look at the diameter, because from manufacturer A, B, and C, and even different types, the 10-pound is not going to be just 10 pounds. So make sure you keep an eye on those diameters. And I've spent a lot of time kind of, just seeing what works for me, maybe a little different for you. But this 10, I just seem to get more bites, especially when we're ice fishing, a little bit smaller diameter. I think it's about, the 10 is I think 11 thousandths if I'm not mistaken. But I get more bites on this. I have less drag. I can stay more vertical. In actuality, you can actually use smaller jigs weight-wise because you have less drag through the water. But again, casting or anything in my hand, I like that high vis. And believe it or not, this is actually more low vis than a like black or green or something braid, because it's opaque, or not opaque like that is, and you can see through it. So most of the time I'm just even going to tie direct right with that. Ice fishing, I will use a leader for multiple reasons, but for visibility wise and most open water things, not really worried about it at all. And then, braid does play, into things, no doubt. Like if we're in Detroit River, heavy current, fishing really deep, you guys that are, live scopers, you're fishing things where you really got to have that feel, you're making long casts, braid is the deal. This is P-Line Endurex. This is a newer deal, really, really unique. So again, we've got the high vis here, but this is a no fade braid. Guaranteed, literally have a guarantee not to fade. And any of you guys that have ever used braid, just even spooling it up, the end of it with all over your hands and everything, pretty crazy. You look at this stuff, we put a thing on our social media showing you a before and after for about a year with this, and the stuff literally looks at the same color. It's pretty amazing. So for this, I'm using 10-pound test. So this is like what's on my walleye jigging reels right now. This is what's on my bass fishing stuff, our drop shots, forward-facing rods, casting for walleyes. Pretty much, again, you notice on all these things, I use bulk spools. You save a ton of money once you kind of figure out what you want. You also just don't leave a lot of waste, having 20, 30 yards or more left on the spool where it's not enough to fill another one. So get these bulk spools. Fish USA has almost all these different P-lines in the larger bulk spools, and that's going to save you a lot of money once you get comfortable and know that that's the line you're going to want to use. And then here, because I know I said I primarily use, and I do, monofilament or a copolymer for most of my trolling and such, and in general most of my fishing, but here's P-Line Endurex 30-pound. And so we're doing a little bit different here with this one. We're using the, I guess you call it low vis green. I don't know how low vis it is because braid is definitely more visible, but I'm using this for any of the heavier presentations like trolling jet divers, dip sea divers, things like that, where I definitely need a little more muscle on there. We're gonna have a lot more torque. We need a little thicker diameter in case it gets nicked up a little bit. And this 30-pound is gonna get me really close to what a lot of the guys around me on the Great Lakes use for their dive charts, for their dipsies and things like that, no different than you do with your monofilament for your planer boards. And so this 30 is just really, really strong stuff. And again, I don't have to change it nearly as much because we got the no fade deal here. It's gonna stay looking a lot more low vis, and that's a big deal for me. And then fluorocarbon, I don't really spool up mainly with hardly anything if you're doing some bass fishing, I know, but you know, fluorocarbon is in nature, there's two different types. And the regular fluorocarbon, like the P-line has, that you'd spool up like Fluoro Clear or something like that, those are great. It just doesn't work for a lot of the stuff that I personally do. But the one thing that I do use a ton of is leader material. And the thing you have to understand is leader material and fluorocarbon is two totally different things. Leader material is going to be extremely stiff. It's going to be much more abrasion resistant. It's meant truly as a leader thing. Now you really need to look at the diameter of that because again, 10 pound and 10 pound and 10 pound, even in different types, P-line has multiple leader materials aside from just fluorocarbon. So get one of these in a smaller deal, try it out, see what works for your application. I have a whole box of nothing but this Shinsi leader material. They come in little smaller spools like this. And it's really important to me because the diameter really does make a difference in getting bites and things like that, and also obviously not breaking. So 20, 25 pounds, something like that, that's what we're using for our leaders, like off of lead core, for example. We're getting ready to do some salmon fishing here. They stretch your string out. I tie my harnesses with 20-pound Shinsi. That takes a ton, just a huge beating. And then we're kind of going down from there, you know, like for bass fishing, whether you're drop shotting or some finesse presentation like that, or even walleyes, you know, with your jig and worm or jigging like Z-Man plastic, you know, 8, 10, 12. I feel like it's really important to have a handful of these along because if somebody's getting bit or the bite gets tougher, believe it or not, just going down a size or two is going to make a huge difference in the number of bites you get. And this stuff is so strong that you just don't have nearly the breakoffs that you would with another type of line or not a quality leader material like the P-line Shinsi. So 10, 12, 15, 20, 25, those all come into huge play, and even some of the other stuff, we use some of the 4 and things like that for ice fishing or for some panfish and perch. But know that there's a huge difference between leader material and regular fluorocarbon. So yes, there are way more lines that you can use, but these are the ones that I primarily use. I mean, that covers almost all of my bases when I'm fishing for walleyes and really other species beyond as well.